Hey, how's it going? Keith Morgan here for TechTyro.com, and today we're going to be looking at the Cycles render engine built into Blender. Now, if you've never used Cycles, it's a lot different from the Blender internal render engine. It calculates the light bounces of individual photons as opposed to just the direct rays of light that come from sources. So you get a lot more realistic bounce lighting, reflections, refractions, all this good stuff. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start with this vase that Corwin made, and we're going to just show you quickly some of the abilities of Cycles. Now this isn't going to be exhaustive, this is just going to be a very quick taste of what Cycles has to offer, but I really hope that we'll be able to show you just some of the really nice effects you can get using Cycles. So we'll start with our file, and at the top here we'll switch it from Blender Render to Cycles Render, and you'll see that this material might have changed a little bit. And that's all right. But first things we're going to do is we're going to select our object, and we're going to go to the Material tab, and you'll see, once we hit New, that we have a lot. It's very different from the Blender internal material setup. We don't have all these previews and stuff. We don't have all these previews. It's more just info-based, and where the real magic lies in Cycles material setup is when you take one of your panels and you go to the node editor. Now, Cycles materials are built using nodes. You don't have to use the nodes, so you could just use these if you're doing basic, but for complex material setups, I highly recommend that you get used to using nodes. And you just can do so much with nodes, and you'll just fall in love with them. Yes. So, we want our vase to be made out of glass, and luckily for us, they have a glass preset in Blender. So I won't even touch this right here. If we watch up here, under the material panel, instead of diffuse BSDF, we can choose a glass shader, and that automatically updates down here in the node editor. And as you can see, it connects from the glass node to the surface node of our material output, signifying that our glass shader will be used on our surface of our object. And we can also change the index of refraction and the roughness value, as well as the color and different mathematical distributions for the reflection refraction types and roughness types, and some other features that we won't get into right now. If you wanted to, you could change the color of your glass. The roughness dictates how sharp your refractions are through the glass. So if you wanted a really frosted glass, just shove your roughness up a few decimal points, nothing crazy. And then your index of refraction dictates the density of your material, and that will change the physics on how the light gets bent through your object. So, one thing you'll want to do with Cycles, it renders best off the GPU, your graphic processing unit. So if you have CUDA cores in your graphic card, you can activate them by going to File, User Preferences, and under the System tab, instead of the compute device set to none, which defaults to CPU only, choose CUDA, and you will have a graphics card. If you do not have this option, you do not get this option. So, make that quite clear. That doesn't mean you can't use Cycles. It just means you'll have to render a little bit longer, quite substantially longer actually, but you're not stuck in the water. So once you activate your GPUs, you have to set them as the render device. So over here in the render panel, under device, change it from CPU to GPU compute, and that will start using your graphics card. And it is, depending on how good your CPU and your GPU are, it can be up to like 100 times faster. So, it can save you a lot of time just being able to do that. So now that we have our glass set up and we have our GPU set, I'm going to go over here and next to the edit mode, the object mode selection, we'll change the viewport shading mode to rendered. And you can see that our glass is rendering see-through, but you probably aren't too wowed by that. So we can do something that Cycles is also really good at, which is using environment maps to light your scene. So we'll just hit ZZ to bring us back to solid view mode. And then we'll go to the World tab over here. So we'll activate nodes, and we'll change our color to environment texture, and we'll go and open our environment map. You can find this environment map on Flickr. This specific one was provided by Flickr user Luca Beata. You can find a lot of environment maps via searching equirectangular in the Flickr search, and under the advanced search settings, make sure you jack up your Creative Commons search functionality, and then you will find maps that you can use for just about anything. Make sure that you attribute should they have attribution licenses. That's why I'm giving Luca Biata the credit they deserve. And so, with that selected, make sure that it is set to equirectangular, as the equirectangular maps we are searching for are equirectangular. And the vector is fine, and the strength dictates how strong the light emitted from that picture is. 1 by default is absolute brightness, like the default brightness that the picture shows up on your monitor. And then if we go back to rendered, you'll see that our glass is now lit by that texture. Now, you'll see that the background is kind of freaking out. We have to go into perspective viewport to see the picture in the background, so you can do that by hitting 5 if you're not already there. You know, that glass refracts, and it really looks like it's in the scene. You know, if we just zoom out and put it on the ground, it looks like it's there, you know? And that's just like one of the best things about Cycles, is that it can realistically just create this really nice lighting. And you might be wondering why it just keeps looking really noisy. What Cycles does is it progressively scans the image, recalculating the bounce lights from each photon with each pass. If you see up here, we have it 10 out of 10 passes right now. If we go over to the render tab and we scroll down to sampling, we can see right here that our preview is set to 10. If we jack that up to, say, 30, it will continue to render our image in the preview viewport till 30 passes. The longer you render it, the more accurate it will be, and the less noisy, but granted, the longer it takes. And then you also have independent settings for your rendering. So if you were to set that, say, to 150, and then if we click 0 on our number pad to go into camera, and let's just move our camera in here. Just lock the camera to view, zoom in a little bit, maybe orbit around, just get a nice shot. Put it right there, and we'll click that. And if we go to render, you'll see it does it in little patches at a time, and you can set what those tile sizes are. Benchmarks have been done, and it is found that the most efficient tile size is 256 pixels by 256 pixels. By default, Cycle sets that to 64 by 64 pixels, and the only reason, like, you only have to worry about that on GPU. For CPU, you want smaller tiles, because CPU can render more than one tile at a time, but GPU can only render one tile at a time, so increasing your area for tile is more efficient, whereas on CPU, where you can render multiple tiles at once, having smaller tiles is more efficient. So if you want to edit that, under Performance, change the tile size for 256 by 256. If you're using CPU render, I suggest you leave it at 64 or drop it a little bit further, but you want to probably keep it in base 2, just so that your computer can process it a little more efficiently. Computers love base 2, and that just means, you know, powers of 2. So with that, you know, you just save that out, image save, good to go. So that is our introduction to Cycles. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you realize what can be done with Cycles. There's so many different shader types, so many ways you can mix them, and there's always new ways people are coming up with them. So I really look forward to seeing how you guys experiment with them and use them, and I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. So for Tech Tyro, this is Keith Morgan signing off.